Hi guys, welcome to this episode of Know Your Kilimanjaro with Nishi. Ever since I heard of the trek to Mount Kilimanjaro, especially the fact that one did not require mountaineering skills despite a peak height of more than 19,000 feet or about 6,000 meters, I always thought of doing it someday.
Prior to this, I had done a few treks over 5 to 7 days, like the Pindari Glacier in Uttarakhand, Mishmi Hills in Arunachal Pradesh, an overnight trek to the Zuku Valley in Nagaland, and a few day hikes off Mumbai, but none anywhere close to the altitude that we were talking about. I firmed up my plans in March or April of 2023, and so the first thing was to decide the month for the trek. Kilimanjaro has two dry seasons, December through February or early March and June to October. The rest of the months experience light to heavy rains. In terms of crowd, climbers prefer the July to September period because for many in the US and Europe, that's the holiday season, especially for the kids, which is why numbers drop from October till end November, thus giving the guides and porters a breather before the crowd comes back in December. I chose September because of two reasons. First, it was a good time for the trek, and second, it was also a good time for a safari at the Serengeti National Park. The next important decision was to choose the route for the trek. There are a total of 5 routes to climb Mount Kilimanjaro: Rongai, Lemosho, Umwe, Machame, and Marangu. The Rongai route approaches the mountain from the north, Lemosho from the west, Machame and Umwe from the south, and Marangu from southeast. To go down, climbers coming from the Machame, Lemosho, Umwe and Rongai routes all use the Moika gate to exit. Only climbers coming from the Marangu route use the same route to go back. Among the various routes, Umwe and Machame are considered the toughest and Marangu the easiest in terms of gradient and steepness. Lemosho and Rongai have moderate gradient but are famous for the beautiful views they offer. Umwe takes the shortest time to reach the top, about 5 days, but as I said earlier, is also the steepest and is typically used by expert trekkers. Machame is also relatively tough as compared to the other routes. That and Marango routes take about 6 to 7 days. Lemosho and Rongai take about 7 to 8 days, depending on the circuit one takes. Duration of some of the routes can be increased by a day or two if one takes a detour or a roundabout from the shortest route. For instance, climbers on the Lemosho and Machame routes can stop at Moerik Hut and Lava Tower before heading to the Barranco camp. Some choose to go around the northern circuit before heading for the summit. On the other hand, their duration can also be decreased by skipping some of the intervening camps. I chose the 8-day Lemosho route for its easy gradient and stunning vistas. I had the option of reducing the duration by a day by not camping overnight at say the Shira camp and proceeding directly to Shira 2. Well, we will know about these camps further ahead in the video, but I chose not to push myself unnecessarily since I had time on hand.
Anyone planning to climb almost 19,500 feet needs a proper fitness regimen. Many plan for this trek almost a year or two in advance and are super fit by the time they are at the entrance of their chosen route. I, on the other hand, had a different story. My frequent travels, because of the nature of my work, led to erratic diet and irregular exercise regimen. I was almost 10 kilos overweight, and to make matters worse, I had to go through a minor knee surgery called arthroscopy around the meniscus tissue just 2 months before my journey. My ortho surgeon prohibited any kind of strenuous exercise for the next 3 weeks. I was left with just over a month to prepare, and with all the intervening travels, I was practically left with just 15 days of serious workout. My nightmares of having to return midway, having deposited that kind of money for the trek, pushed me to use those 2 weeks in the best possible way. Now, what I realized was that since there wasn't much of rope climbing or pulling up involved in the trek, and it was more about long hours of walking on moderate to steep gradient, I did not work much on my uppers and instead focused only on my lower part.
Leg presses, leg curls, extensions, ankle, and cross training exercises for endurance. I did just that for the 2 weeks at the gym. So when I was at the Lemosho gate, looking at the super fit climbers all around me, the only thing that prevented me from going into depression was that I had strong legs, strong calf muscles, and loads of determination. And of course, pole pole. There is much material on the kind of travel gear one needs for this trip. Monkey cap, thermals, both top and bottom, balaclava, layers of fleece, warm jacket, gloves, both inners and the thick ones, warm trek pants, woolen socks, water bottles, sippers, headlamps and poles. Among these, I'd like to point out the stuff that I hadn't given enough importance to. Warm cap or a heavy woolen cap. This keeps the head warm and is critical at high altitudes. At least 2 thermals, including one that is woolen, especially for the summit night. Gaiters to prevent rock and snow pebbles from going into the shoes and slow down your trek. Trekking shoes with good grip. I used Skechers that really served me well, and maybe more than one heavy duty power bank. Battery drains off very quickly at high altitudes, especially after the Barranco camp if you're taking the Lemosho or Mechame routes. There are solar panel powered charging points at various camps, but practically they were hard to access. My trekking company, African Scenic Safari, have an excellent practice of checking a climber's gear one evening prior to the start date. They do that, identify missing essentials and encourage one to hire them on rent. I follow their advice and boy, was ever so thankful. The stuff was really required at high altitudes. On the scheduled date, I head out to Nairobi for my onward connection to Kilimanjaro International Airport. At this small and pretty airport, I am warmly received by my driver, Jaffrey, who has been assigned to take me to Moshi, the biggest town on the foothills of the mountain. As we drive out, Jaffrey fills me with a lot of information. He says that on a clear day, one can see the Kilimanjaro mountain not far from the airport exit. Tells me how despite there being 120 tribes, there is no ethnic violence. One of the big reasons for this is that the whole country speaks one language, Swahili, which the first president of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, insisted upon. Focus on family bonds rather than tribes has made Tanzania a culturally stable nation. As I pass through large tracts of cultivated land, corn, sugarcane, coffee, and many others, Jaffrey tells me that agriculture and tourism are among the major industries in the country. After about a 2-hour drive, I am delighted to check into this beautiful property called Veru Veru River Lodge at Moshi. After some rest, I meet my guide for the trek, Saidi Konda, along with the manager from the trekking company for an orientation session, basically the do's and don'ts during the climb. Interestingly, Saidi has returned from a climb just this morning and is getting ready to start another one with me tomorrow.
So guys,
Back to the business.
back to business. So this is the great,
We can do it.
we together can do it.
Some of the aspects highlighted during this session are: climbing is not a challenge to summit the mountain, acclimatization is. Walk slowly or pole pole. That's the best way to acclimatize. This is not a competition. The certificate of the guy who reaches the top the fastest will look exactly the same as mine. So no point trying to hurry things up. This is one mistake many expert trekkers make. They find the trail too easy and walk at high speed, only to give up and return midway because of altitude sickness. The second bit is, porters use the same route as climbers. Since they have to carry heavy stuff, tent equipment, food, gas cylinders, water, our own duffel bags, they have the tacit right of way, i.e., if they come up behind you, make way for them. One needs to keep sipping water, 2 to 3 liters a day in aggregate. There would be a medical test by the guide every evening before dinner, and one needs to inform the guide as soon as one feels unwell. Diamox, the medicine to prevent acute mountain sickness, should be had after breakfast and lunch, half a tablet each. One should avoid taking Diamox after dinner as the medicine causes frequent urination and thus leads to disturbed sleep. Last but not the least, follow your guide's instructions. Sairi also taught me a few commonly used Swahili words. Jambo means hello. You could also say jambo jambo. Pole pole means slowly slowly. Haraka means fast. But mind you, I never heard or had to use this word in my entire trip. Asante means thank you. Asante sana means thank you very much. Karibu means you're welcome. Karibu sana means you're most welcome. Hakuna matata means no problem or no worries. Lala salama means sleep well. One important aspect of the discussion was the tipping practice, and this is something that travelers, especially those going solo or in small groups, should be prepared for. There are suggested tipping amounts recommended for a particular type of support staff. The head guide gets $20 a day, assistant guide $15 a day, chef $15 a day, porters $7 to $10 a day. I was a solo climber, was originally assigned one head guide, one assistant guide, one chef and 7 porters, and had a trek duration of 8 days. Based on this, my tipping amount was estimated at a whopping $792 to be paid by me alone. When I almost fainted, Simbo, the director of the trek company, came to my rescue and assured me that tipping is voluntary and the staff would be happy with whatever I was comfortable sharing. I can't blame the staff. They work as hard for a solo climber as for a group. It's just that it becomes too expensive for small groups or solo travelers. I offered whatever I could do best, and seems I didn't disappoint them. They still message me on my well-being. Of course, they are too nice and proud to let these things matter anyway. I wake up to a bright and sunny morning with the sound of birds all around. We started just after 9 am from Moshi. The drive between Moshi and Lemosho Gate is about 1.5 to 2 hours. We stop at a small town called Sanya, about half an hour from the Lemosho Gate, for the support staff to have breakfast. As we approach the Lemosho Gate, we find ourselves at the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro that forms the first zone among the 5 zones of the mountain. This zone has agricultural fields owned by the local Chaga tribe, who grow potatoes, carrots, maize, yam, and other fruits and vegetables. One also sees pine trees planted by the tribe as a source of fuel. The land receives fair share of water not only from the rains, but also from the water flowing down the mountain. Earlier, the entrance for this route was from the Londorosi Gate, which was a little beyond the Lemosho Gate. The gate is now closed, and the entry from this side of the mountain is from the Lemosho Gate. At the Lemosho Gate, the officials prepared the trek permit using my passport details as well as all the details of the staff. There are neat washrooms here and an open dining hall for climbers to have lunch. My lunch box has fruits, a burger, fries and packed juice. The porters use the opportunity to organize the bags and get ready for the journey ahead. Some of the guides of other groups look at me, shake hands and rattle out names of Bollywood actors and songs. Seems Bollywood is quite popular here too. The trek starts with a trail through thick rainforest. This is the second zone of the mountain, the montane forest, a tropical forest that spans from about 1000 to 1800 meters. This area is rich in flora and various kinds of animals. If it doesn't rain while you're going through the forest, you can see the black and white colobus monkey and blue monkey in the forest, as well as at the first camp, the Mkubwa camp or the big tree camp. The rainforest usually plays to its name. It rained both on the way up and down for most part of the forest. Once the rain stops, the birds get back to their intense chirping. Mkubwa Camp or the Big Tree Camp is the first camp on the Lemosho route at about 2650 meters. The camp is in the midst of the montane forest. Upon reaching the camp, my guide signs in at the office with the name of the trekking company, staff details and so on. Once he's done, I fill in my details. After a bit of freshening up, I walk around the Mkubwa camp. This is a bit of a busy camp because most of the climbers who start from the Lemosho gate camp here for the night. The other camps are less busy because climbers camp depending on their schedule and package. This is the first camp where I get an experience of a camp setup, my sleeping tent, mess tent, kitchen tent and others. Over time, I develop another use of my mess tent. It becomes my cleaning and changing room. This is also the place that I got to know some of my staff members for the first time. Over the next few days, I develop a regular routine for my day. I used to wake up early, say between 5 and 5:30 am, and that's not difficult because there is no nightlife in the mountains. It's too cold to wander around, and so you retire for the day soon after an early dinner. Use the washroom, which is usually empty in the early morning hours. At every camp, there are separate washrooms for porters and support staff, and designated ones for the climbers. I found the washrooms clean in most places. After that, I used to go for a cup of hot water, use the mess room to sponge myself. This part is usually called washi by the staff, and clean myself using wet tissues. Breakfast was usually served at about 7:30 am, and we used to start our day's trek sometime between 8 and 8:30 am. After our day's journey, it used to be cleanup time, some tea and snacks which I usually used to forego, a quick health checkup by my guide.
Nausea?
No nausea.
Nausea?
Mhm.
Did you vomit this afternoon?
No, I did not vomit.
No. Diarrhea?
No diarrhea.
No diarrhea.
Mhm.
Any difficulty breathing?
No breathing problems.
Mhm.
No.
Good news. Did you any coughing?
No coughing. No.
No coughing.
No.
Okay. Do you remember when the last pee?
About 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago. Okay.
And an early dinner at about 7 pm. It's a nice and sunny day, and the area is buzzing with porters packing up and climbers getting ready to leave. Today, our destination is the Shira Camp. My guide has already prepared me that it is going to be a long day, 6 to 7 hours of trek. We start at about 8:30 am. The third zone between the Mkubwa camp and the Shirawan camp is the heathland and moorland zone, which spans between 2,800 and 4,000 meters. Here the plants are shorter, and typical of the zone, you see erica trees, everlasting plants, Kilimanjaro protea, the South African national flower, and other kinds of flora. A little higher and you will see a lot of elephant grass. The climate here is drier and cooler. You can even see the Kenyan mountains far on your left. One remarkable effort by the staff of the African Scenic Safari Company towards ecological conservation of the mountain is to collect non-degradable litter and dispose it at the next camp. My guide Saidi never missed an opportunity to pick up trash whenever he saw it, however tired he was, and that had a rub-off effect on me too. As advised by Saidi, day 2 is a long day, but the climb is steep only in parts and gradual for the rest. Split in approximate proportions, it is 70% climb, 20% same altitude walk, and the rest gradual descent. We climb up to 3,900 meters and then descend to 3,600 meters to the Shirawan camp. In my entire climb, never do I find a guide walking fast. Only pole or slowly, and that's what they advise all the climbers. One of the moderately steep section is called the elephant back because it looks like that from a distance. at the end of which you come to a small clearing and resting place. The views from here are magnificent. No, the porters aren't checking their pictures. They know that this is the magic spot for network. Some of them try to contact their families, offices, and others. If you have a local SIM, here's the place to use it. But remember, save battery life. You'll need it as you go higher and higher. My hike for the day ends at an amazing clearing that not only gives me a glimpse of the Shira Camp at a distance, but also the first views of Mount Kilimanjaro. Many a time, the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro is hidden behind the clouds and hence is often referred to as the Shy Mountain. This region is called Shira because Shira in the local Chaga dialect means war. Tanzania has more than 120 tribes. The Kilimanjaro region is dominated by the Chaga tribe. This region faced constant attack from the Maasai tribe of Kenya and hence the area was called Shira or war. As we approach Shira Camp at 3,610 meters, it starts raining. Our tents are already laid out by the staff that reached at least a couple of hours earlier. There's hot lunch waiting for us, prepared by our chef Baraka and his team. After lunch, I take a nap, and by the time I wake up a couple of hours later, the sky has cleared up and there's beautiful view of Mount Kilimanjaro right in front of us. From this camp onwards, you get to see the mountain from every camp, and the closer you get, the taller it stands in front of you. Shira Camp has a magnificent view of wide plains surrounded by mountains. The vegetation is largely short plants and bushes. This is also the first time that I get introduced to our team. They sing the customary Kilimanjaro anthem while dancing. Over the next few hours, I become very familiar with all the names that helps me bond even better with the team. Sitting in the kitchen tent, Saidi fills me in with some stories of the mountain. Kilimanjaro is a volcanic mountain that has 3 peaks: Shira, Mavinzi, and Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom. The Uhuru peak, which is the tallest peak and the destination for all climbers including me, is the youngest of them all and hence called the baby peak. Dr. Hans Meyer, a German geological professor, is considered the first person to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. He made his first attempt in 1887 but was unsuccessful in the first 3 attempts. In fact, in the second attempt, he found himself caught in the Arab revolt against the Germans and escaped only after paying a ransom. Among the several challenges that he faced during his various attempts, the most critical was availability of food and water at high altitudes. This Dr. Meyer resolved by establishing camps at various points and having porters carry food and supplies to each of these camps. Dr. Meyer was finally successful in his 4th attempt in 1889. Accompanying Dr. Meyer in this expedition was his friend Herr Ludwig Purscheller. The route that they took is now known as the Marengo route. At the time of Dr. Meyer's expedition, there was snow and ice all through the climb. Now, there is hardly any, and all the snow that one gets to see are the glaciers at the top of the mountain. The face of the mountain that is visible as one approaches from the western side is not the side that one summits from. That side is extremely steep. The base camp for this side is called the Arrow Glacier Camp. The trail from the Arrow Glacier Camp to the summit is called the Western Breach Trail, which is extremely steep and dangerous because of the possibility of falling rocks due to glacier melting. What happens is that the glaciers bind these rocks, and when they melt, the rocks come loose. In 2006 January, 3 American climbers were killed and another along with 4 porters were badly injured because of falling rocks. The other problem with this trail is that if one takes ill, there is no way of evacuation other than to keep climbing up to the rim. The reason people take this route is for the thrill as well as to spend time in the crater. Earlier, one could scale from this side by taking a special permit and paying porters far more than normal fares. These days, however, porters are prohibited by local authorities from going on that trail. If a climber wishes to scale from this side, he or she will have to be on his or her own and assume all the risks that come with it. For most climbers, they go around the base of the mountain to the Barafu base camp that is used to summit the peak on the eastern side.
Guys, there's more on my trek to Mount Kilimanjaro. Check my second episode of Know Your Kilimanjaro with Nishi.
Anvayins live their stories